All right. We're trying something a little different today. It took me a minute to get it set up. I haven't really played around with StreamYard before today. It's still kind of laggy, I can see. It's not really doing so great. I may try something different this time. But in any case, you're going to read along with me today. So first we're going to review it. Let's see if we can figure this out. Excellent. Okay. All right, so let's review. We started with paragraph 31 last time. So, what are we talking about? We talked about the metaphysical distrust in reality, and we talked about how that breaks down the social cohesion that then enables society to spontaneously deal with problems. And by doing that, that enthrones the institution. Right? So by enthroning the institution, then by the Lukácsian standard, right? That then makes the institution the source of all good, because you split individuals 1,000 different ways. So now we're not a cohesive society. We're just a bunch of strange, eccentric individuals who have no relationship to one another. And so now we no longer help each other. We no longer solve each other's problems spontaneously or through organic relationships. Now we have to rely on institutions. And so the institutions force themselves on society and basically override it. Right? That's what this leads to. Okay. Okay. Yeah, and this is the foundation of liberalism, right? So here you have basically liberalism absorbing Marx instead of Marx absorbing liberalism. This isn't a thought that occurred to me yesterday. It's a thought that's occurring to me now, which is, in a way, Dengist China was an example of communism absorbing liberalism, whereas the neoliberal order is an example of liberalism absorbing Marxism. Right? Not even Marxism, really, Hegelianism. So they have a twisted version of Hegelianism. I don't even want to call it Marxist because it's not material. It's not based on a material dialectic. It is based on a dialectic, but it's based on this sort of toxic, artificial kind of dialectic that supports the status quo instead of, allowing it to shift. So moving on. Only got about 10 minutes left before I have to close this down. We're at paragraph 37 here. In Marxism, the highest aim of knowledge is to give way to reality. This entails a great trust in material being. Anything of importance arrived at by knowledge is already reconciled within material reality itself. Yeah. To give way to reality. This is a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Taoist concept. This whole idea of not trying to assert onto reality, but allowing reality to kind of manifest to you, right? That's very much in line with Taoism. And by the way, Heidegger, a lot of Heidegger's early students were from Japan because the Japanese were Taoists, right? And so these Taoists read Heidegger and they saw their religion in Heidegger because they were talking about very similar things, right? And that's what this is giving away to reality. this great trust in material being. So in other words, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be able to measure everything out to a T. You can trust that, hey, there's some things that I don't know, and that's okay. I'll figure it out as I go along. I can trust other people, that kind of thing. And by other people, I mean like other people within society, not these ivory tower experts whose whole way of being is metaphysical distrust. See, that's what they want you to do. They want you to trust these. They want you to trust these ivory tower experts who are really a new form of priesthood. And the way they get up there is by being the most Cartesian, the most distrustful on a metaphysical level. Whereas what this is calling us to do is to do the opposite of that. To put our trust in people, to put our trust in concrete material reality, and to not have to understand all the minutiae of it. You can study the minutiae as you go along. There's nothing wrong with that. But to lay that down as the basis for your being is unhuman. It's ultimately, I don't want to use too strong a language, but there is an element of the satanic in that, right? Because God manifests in material reality. So that's where it says anything of importance arrived at by knowledge is already reconciled within material reality itself. That's a theological statement, actually, right? Because that's saying, look, the material reality is, this is my interpretation. Okay, this is not necessarily Haas's interpretation. This is my interpretation. It's not necessarily what he's saying. God is manifest in material reality. Right? Material reality is a manifestation of God. And so by acknowledging that knowledge is everything that can be known is already reconciled in material reality, that's a way of trusting in God. That's a religious act. That's living by faith. Moving on. The paradox is that this giving way is a necessary act of consciousness. That's correct. This is an area related to depth psychology, where again it goes back to what we were talking about a couple of episodes ago, where we were talking about man's access to the pre-conscious, right? So you access the pre-conscious by giving way, right? You give way to material reality, and in so doing, you're listening. And you're not just listening to what's outside, you're listening to what's inside as well. And that's how you access your pre-conscious. That's how you can smell the bullshit when it's being sold to you, right? Kant and fish soar to heaven's blue, seeking for some distant land. But I seek to grasp profound and true, that which in the street I find. Yeah. Yep. We've got a few more minutes. We're probably not going to get to this whole subthread, unfortunately. So we'll try to get at least to the next paragraph or two. Lukács' response to this paradox revised Marxism itself. But even if Lukács were to be rejected, the problem remains. Right, because it's a problem that actually preceded Lukács. This sort of hyper-Cartesianism, this was already part of Western culture long before Lukács came around. And he addresses that as well, because it wasn't part of Eastern culture. So there's a reason why Marxism took in the East, in Soviet Russia and in China, where it failed to do so in the West. And that's because of this post-Cartesian revolution. Furthermore, what is really the problem with Lukács' revision anyway? Exploring that reveals the way to a better solution. Okay. As we have shown, the idea of communism as a pure subjective self-consciousness is based on the notion that objectivity is just reified social relations. Okay, let's read that again. As we have shown, the idea of communism as a pure subjective self-consciousness is based on the notion that objectivity is just reified social relations. Again, this goes back to where we started looking at Lukács. And instead of having the social subject and the material object, now we have the individual subject and the social object. And this lays the foundation of structuralism, because we're no longer talking about mankind's contention with material reality and developing a relationship with material reality. Now we're talking about men within society building relationships with one another that are based on power dynamics. And so then this leads to Foucault and a lot of the other postmodernists who have like an overemphasis on power dynamics within society, as opposed to focusing on society as a whole having a relationship with material being, which is much more in line with what Heidegger would say. This naturally begs the question of what the content of these social relations consist of, as so far they are only pure form. So I'm saying that it's most, and I don't remember exactly, it's been a while since I've read it. I'm saying that this is going to lead to this analysis of the social relations in terms of power dynamics, because, and I haven't really read Lukács, but I've read Foucault and some of the postmodernists, and that's where they take it, right? That's where the structuralists mostly take this. So I'm assuming that's where this is going to go. But we'll see. We'll see as we read it. And that's going to have to be it for today. It's going to be a short one today, but yeah. I had to take some time to get this set up, and unfortunately I cut into my recording time. But we'll try to pick this back up tomorrow. We'll see how it goes.